Hi, I'm Blake Rayhans.
And I'm Stacie Mallon.
And you are listening to the Optimized AF podcast.
We know life is hard. We're here to make it simple.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Optimized AF podcast. This is Blake.
And I'm Stacie, and we are on a third part, but a separate part. Right,
welcome back.
Of the series. So
we're still
back.
at Galvanize. We are with the wonderful Dr. J and Greg Lim. Thank you both for joining us again for another episode. We're really excited about this one because, you know, in the last two that you guys listened to, we covered a lot about wellness. We covered a lot about sort of just the state of where things are at. We gave some really great tips along the way. Of course, hopefully we really genuinely hope that you took some of those and immediately applied them to your last weeks. If you have, we really encourage you, throw us a comment, put down and share with the community what you applied to your life that has brought some value in the last 2 weeks based on what we heard. Now, what we're really excited about in today's episode is we're going to get into this habit that has been, I would say, a real highlight and focus for 6 years now, maybe give or take, when we're talking about journaling. So we're going to break down a little bit about where journaling kind of came from out of nowhere. It kind of hit everybody, and it had a lot of importance that came with it. And then we're going to highlight the fact that it's really fucking hard.
It can be really hard. It can be. And
I'll all the best intentions.
I'll bridge this into what's coming after this episode and why this became relevant for us as well. Is we're going to be talking to two experts next on the job search in 2021, the mental anguish that comes along with searching for a new opportunity. And a lot of people are in that space. So we wanted to bring this episode specifically back because journaling is one of those things that, whether it's reflecting on gratitude or however you're using your journaling, can be a powerful mechanism to really get in touch with and stay grounded in times where it feels like when you're looking for a job, right? Everything's up in the air. Your rhythm is, off. So I wanted to have this specific conversation as a bridge between what we talked about last. So, Greg, why don't you share your journey with journaling with us as a kind of starting point to what got you started down this road?
Oh, absolutely. And thank you. First off, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Like a lot of people, I want to improve myself. Right? Whether it's eating better, being more present for my family, meditating, we all have these grand plans of things that hopefully come into fruition in some form or another, never really in the way that we plan. But one of the things that's always fascinated me is journaling, right? When you listen to the Tim Ferriss podcast, when you listen to all of these kind of high performers, there are certain habits that are consistent across everyone. One of them is meditation, and the other one is journaling. Meditation, I haven't got it down, but I'm doing all right. And I tried journaling, and I've bought, I think it's the HPX journal. I've got the 5-minute journal. Thanks a lot, Spiritual Gangster, for that gift. I bought some crazy journal off eBay from Japan that someone was raving about. I literally have a cabinet in my house of journals. And not once have I made it past week 2. Now, I'm sure that says a lot of things about me and my self-discipline, but what I discovered, at least from my perspective, is that journaling is a habit that works for people who already have the discipline, right? So if you're already a high performer, journaling is probably a thing that comes relatively easy to you. But for the rest of us, and for me specifically, I really struggled for that consistency. And then layer on the fact that I'm a new parent, having a young child, the distractions that come with that, I couldn't establish that habit. And so I really stepped back and said, all right, well, there are things that some of that's on me and I own that, but what else can I do to make the journal just easy to do? And so I said, well, right now I have to carve half an hour out of my day. I need to find some peace and quiet, shut down everything else, and find 30 minutes. And as a parent, good luck, not gonna happen. And so then I said, all right, how do we make it easy? Let's get rid of the journal, and maybe I can create something that's app-based. But that's still the same thing. I still need to find 30 minutes, open the app. It's just a digital journal to that degree. And then I just really tried to simplify it, and I came up with this idea of, well, what's the one thing I always respond to? I'd love to say it's my wife and my children, but text messages, right? 90% of people respond to a text message within 3 minutes. Like, that's what all of the data says. And so I said, well, what if we created this text-based journal that, instead of relying on me and clearly my absence, lack of willpower and self-control, that it actually reaches out to me with a text to ask me what I want to focus on, what I'm grateful for. And so, in conjunction with Dr. J and some other business partners, created this text-based journal that comes to you. Whenever you get a minute to reply to your text, you can just have a quick response. Here's what I want to focus on. Here's what I'm grateful about. And then it stores those responses, and then at the end of the week, automates and collects all of them in a journal that you can review and take a look at your progress.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, and the last piece of it, I think, is the biggest part that when I took on journaling, I struggled with the same thing. I couldn't get the time to set aside, or I got into a really good flow. A few days later, fell out of flow for whatever reason. And then picking back up just seemed to be this gargantuan effort that I just couldn't quite get there. But the value always came when I was really going well in those first few days or the first week, or if I got into a good habit and I collected 2 weeks worth of stuff, it was the reflection point. It was that actually, if I took 10 minutes to journal every day, it was the half an hour to 45 minutes at the end of the week when I looked back at all those pages and I sort of summarized what is the stuff I could just let go. It was great that I captured it in the moment, but there was always things I took from it. There was never a single time that I didn't review that in reflection, and I took actions that carried over into the next week, or an idea, or whatever the case was. That for me was the value of journaling, but it was so hard. It was hard to put pen to paper on a consistent basis because of all those other things I had juggling. It just seemed like it was the easiest thing to not prioritize, which left me very disheartened because I know how much value it gave me. I don't know, Dr. J, what was journaling for you? How did that come into your life?
So you guys can probably guess I'm a relatively auditory person. So I learn a tremendous amount by hearing. So, and kinesthetic, because obviously I work with my hands so much. I really surrendered ever knowing that I was ever going to sit down and actually write goals, objectives, and I realized that I love to move my body. As you can tell from, if this is on video, I don't sit still all that well sometimes. And I love sound. So I started recording thoughts, ideas, learnings from the week. And then eventually when Greg shared with me that it could automate and remind me to do that, both, responding in text and then possibly even recording something for myself, it was like groundbreaking for me. And I love that. Yeah.
I'm very similar, right? We've talked about this before. I really have good intention. I think, and in fact, this podcast started because we both read Atomic Habits and bought the Atomic Habits journal. So thank you, James Clear. But we both then started using it as a notebook because we couldn't get the journaling to work. So Greg, when you and I first talked, I had a very similar challenge. And I think one thing that happens a lot with both journaling and meditation is people's perception of what that looks like the perfectionism that is, I should be candles lit, sitting on a pillow, carved out 30 minutes to meditate, and or I need to do the same thing for journaling. And I think one great lesson from using the journal and using a text-based journal is there's no such thing as ideal, right? If at the moment that I get the prompt, if I talk to text one sentence, that's still a reflection of something, right? And I think letting go of the perfectionism, and I think that for me, meditation, somebody told me one time, do you meditate? I was like, I'd love to tell you that I really do a good job at that. But what I realized, Blake knows this about me, is almost every day I have a spin bike at home because I was a spin instructor for so long. I break that out and I get on the spin bike with music. And then I'm in my head and I'm in my thoughts. And then for about 5 minutes, though, I kind of clear my head and I'm moving, but I had this idealistic view of meditation that I had to be sitting on a pillow with candles and, silence, right? So what are the things that you have found in working with people with the text-based journal? What are the things that are breakthroughs for them? I know, like I said, for me, it could be one sentence and it didn't have to be this huge diatribe. What are the other lessons you've learned in people engaging in this?
One thing I've found is most habits are just small steps that get you there. So if you're already journaling, congratulations. I'm fully jealous. I feel like text-based journals are journaling for the rest of us, right? So the one thing I've found is it doesn't have to be this planned event, this grand gesture, but just if I get a text in the morning and I'm in the middle of brushing my teeth, making breakfast for my daughter, and it says, what's the one thing you have to do to move your business today? All I need is 5, 10, 15 seconds to step back, say, Great question. Okay, I have to do X, and then my intention is set for the rest of the day. And so it's the ability to take this idealized perception of journaling and boil it down to just practical 3 to 5 practical text messages that show up and track you down rather than vice versa. And we found it to be really effective for the rest of us, I guess.
Yeah, I think the other thing that people get idealistic about is that it's deep thoughts, or you have to journal about some this ultimate place you're supposed to be. But I think one thing that I love, you have different flavors of the journal. And so you can really journal about something specific. So can you talk to us about the different the different flavors that you guys have developed on what's working for people in different areas of focus?
Yeah, well, you guys have obviously caught us kind of early on in the cycle, right? We've just launched recently as a new company, and what our goal is really, it's to our earlier conversation, right? Health and wellness is personal. And so we've taken this concept of text-based journaling and we've built one around gratitude, one around productivity. We have plans to build ones around mental resilience, around fortitude, around parenting, around relationships. And so I hope to be there in a short time. But one of the areas that we've really focused is on building a sleep journal, right? Sleep, as Dr. J mentioned in our last conversation, is really foundational to everything else you do. If you have a good night's sleep, you have the energy to reinvest that in the rest of your life. So, Dr. J, do you want to talk a little bit about the sleep journal?
Well, first of all, we wouldn't be even having this conversation if it wasn't for you. So a local group has been sort of early adopters and has been trying out the sleep journal with some of their leaders. And that wouldn't happen without your guys' help. So we're so grateful, and we're grateful to that group that was open. And what's been so fun about that is we've been able to couple both sleep strategies. So we give people well, first of all, when they wake up, they're prompted with questions. They're asked, not only how rested you are, and also how well did you sleep. And then at night, we give them strategies as well as a video that they can watch too, that can then help them more greatly anchor into behaviors that help them with health and healing. The compliance and the participation is so high because it's so convenient. It's automatically set. Obviously, it's all confidential in terms of, we're not giving their phone numbers out to anybody like that. But it's been exciting. And then we've been able to couple that with our Refresh sleep formula, which is an all-natural sleep formula that helps people fall asleep and stay asleep and wake up feeling refreshed. And the data so far has been outstanding because we're having this collaborative experience of shifting people from a neurological level, helping them have more peace in their body, helping them wake up feeling refreshed, and then giving them strategies as well as an evaluation tool as to whether or not what they're doing is working. So then they can actually participate in some of the choices they're making, independent of not only our program, but it may give them a little hint of like, oh, maybe one of the reasons I'm not rested is it might be a good idea not to watch 37 episodes of that Netflix, but maybe span it out over the next 10 days. And, wherever energy, what does it say? Wherever focus goes, energy flows, or wherever energy goes, focus flows. I may have got that reversed, but the moral of the story is whatever we energize gets magnetized, right? And whatever we focus on, we draw to us. I always tell people, Walt Disney built this amazing theme park in the middle of the desert where there was no water. Now people sometimes have to save up to a year of savings to go, and you can die when you go there. And people are like, yeah, I want to do that. And I was like, think about how profound that is. You can a roller coaster, you can possibly fall on a roller coaster. I think it's probably happened, right? And yet there's, sometimes, hours of lines, people waiting. But I bring that up because if we can create what's possible and help people more greatly experience it, then, the possibilities are endless. And giving people strategies and reminders to help them feel successful and stay more connected to health and well-being. Specifically, our focus now is around how to feel rested. Our future journal is also going to be around how to really stay focused and be mentally clear, and tie that in with our mental focus and clarity formula too. And it's been exciting. It's been a lot of fun, and that wouldn't happen without you. So we're really grateful. Yeah.
Yeah, we're grateful too. I think it's this interesting notion of, we talked about accountability, right? So I think for me, one thing that has been true of the text-based journal and the prompting is, even if I miss one, right, there's still an accountability where if you put the journal down and to the side or in the bookshelf, there's no accountability necessarily to go back to it. What are the elements that, in your experience so far with getting this out there, it seems like that accountability for me is probably a piece of it. But what are the other elements that you're finding that you're getting feedback about?
When I look at the change to everything from COVID, right, over the last year, is whether you have had, let me speak for myself, I've had a lot of bad habits. I've had the absence of a lot of good habits, right? I'm not as healthy, not as focused as I would like to be. And what got me here isn't going to get me there. And so I've had a year of not being as active, as focused, as productive as I've liked. And now all of a sudden I'm going to do one thing and magically dig myself out of this deficit or hole. Like that's not realistic on any level. And so what I really love about what we've created with the Sleep Journal is we've taken 20 plus 30 years of Dr. J's expertise, and it's obviously a lot more than we can put in a journal, but we've taken this approach where there's journaling, self-awareness, and intention setting. There's an accountability component. There's a practical strategies that you can easily implement, and then supporting that with best-in-class supplements that really can help you reset your nervous system so that you can get back to even before you even start building those future habits. And so if we took any one or two of those in isolation, we really wouldn't get the results we're seeing. And so the feedback across the board is, to your point, Stacie, right? Some people love the accountability piece. Other people are having phenomenal results with the supplementation. But really the magic is in how all of those pieces work together to dramatically kind of shift our health, shift our energy, and shift our consciousness in what took us a year to get here. If we can help you get out of that hole to break even in 1 or 2 months, like that's a huge win. And that's kind of the feedback that we're getting across the board.
Oh, that's really fantastic. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Jake.
No. I mean, some of the feedback is that we're also helping people shift their usage of strong pharmaceutical agents. No names will be mentioned at this point. But, then I start asking, so what does that mean in terms of less kidney toxicity, less liver toxicity, possibly less expenses for themselves or the corporation if there's some type of co-participation in terms of healthcare expenses as well, and how does that show up long-term in their quality of life, and then even how they relate to their family as well.
Yeah, I think, the difference between, we talked a little bit about this last time, I think quantity versus quality of sleep. And I think one thing that the journal helps with is just connecting the dots for people that it's the quality of sleep that is really lacking for a lot of people, not necessarily the quantity, which plays into all the things we've discussed, the blue light, all of the things on the rituals. So when you think about expanding this, outside of the sleep journal and going back to our 2021 and beyond wellness topic, are you, you talked a little bit about the different elements that you're thinking about deploying. What are the things and what are the elements that you're looking the most forward to that early stages you're finding have an impact for people? And even in your practice, what are you thinking about could be very powerful for people as you think about transitioning that into, journals and concepts?
Can I go?
Not to give away your secret sauce, but.
All right. So I think there's an amazing opportunity for people to reconnect to what's possible and also to help them possibly reconnect to their dreams. I don't only mean dreams in terms of literally dreaming when you're sleeping so that you can access creativity and deeper level of cognitive function, but really helping people connect to what's possible. When you go back to the word optimize, it's like, how can we actually help people connect to feeling and experiencing what it means to be fulfilled and be at their best? And I think that directly ties into mental focus and clarity, productivity, and journals that are based around helping people really connect to their values so that can be expressed in their workplace and in their home life too.
Yeah, when I hear you guys talk about what you've created here, I see so much potential, where you're going to take this to make, allow someone to really curate the right type of journal. You talk about all these other, kind of, modules even that could be combined to make it the right. The other piece that journaling, you are only accountable to yourself a lot of times with journaling. And that's by nature of the fact that, Stacie, you mentioned it, a lot of times it's been this, like, it's your deep deep reflections, and so it's very personal. So by nature, we've always kept that to ourselves. With the text-based journal, I mean, I look at from my own perspective, especially if I'm being prompted to think differently, to reflect differently, to do these things, but it's all digitally captured. It's really easy for me to appoint an accountability partner and say, hey, you know what, I want to send my weekly reflection to Stacie, and
cool.
I want to be able to just know in my head that I've elected for that to happen, because I know that that's going to influence behavior. Sure. All of a sudden, when that text comes through, I know that I'm going to answer that. I'm not going to miss 5 questions that are prompting me to make significant positive changes in my life, because at the end of the week, my accountability partner is going to text me personally and be like, hey, got your journal, and we need to have a chat. You know, like, what's going on this week? Are you okay? Because you missed a lot of these prompts. There's so much potential there for taking what I have personally experienced as a very, difficult habit to get in a good rhythm. Greg, you said it earlier. If you already journal, then journaling's great. If you're highly successful in that and you take the time to work it into your day, it's probably not a big deal for you. But for the rest of us, most of us, I would argue, this seems like an incredible opportunity to incorporate the benefits of journaling, but in a completely different way that, really isn't being done.
Yeah, it makes me think, not to, brainstorm a business idea on a podcast, but, we think about deploying this to our teams. Something that came up when we did this book club is maybe we should do, on the next time, breakouts with smaller groups, like 2 or 3 people, to have more intimate, deep conversations about, the content. So it makes me think that even as you're looking at organizationally, is there an opportunity to share with an accountability partner, somebody that you do, want to share things with? And as a leader, do we share our leadership journal with our team, for example? So, they understand where our thoughts are at in a very vulnerable way, because again, that's how we emulate behavior. So I think it's an interesting way to potentially open that door to vulnerability that we talked about as well. So what is next for you guys? What are you guys thinking as you think about expanding your business, obviously expanding the product line and how you're packaging this? What are your steps now, and where you see yourself in the near future and growing?
Yeah, I think from a couple of different angles. I think it's like we talked earlier, health and wellness is so personal. I think, as we go through these tests and proof of concepts with these businesses, we're getting feedback from the employees. We love this. This was okay, but could have been a little bit better. And gosh, I wish I had this for parenting, relationships, productivity and positivity, right? So I think we don't want to be prescriptive. We've built this, what I believe is this amazing platform. But what we want to do is hear from our constituents, hear from the people who are using it, understand what they need, and we have the ability to flex around that, right? What they need today is different what they'll need a year from now, and we have the ability to create, to your language, those modules to really, really help them. And I think on the business side, really what we're doing right now is just looking for innovators, right? This is different. Everyone says, I want health and wellness, mental health and wellness. But what they're really saying is, I want something that looks just like that physical health and wellness program that we did back in 2019 before COVID, because I feel comfortable, I feel familiar, and I know I can deploy that without taking a risk against my job. That is not going to work. I said it before, but what got us here isn't going to get us there. And so we're looking for innovative companies. Luckily, Stacie's been generous to introduce us to some of them here in the Valley. Companies that are willing to try new things because they're genuinely looking to solve problems for their employees and help them live better, healthier, more well-balanced lives.
The moral of the story is healthy people make healthy decisions. And I think there's so many things that can be invested in, but if we invest in people's quality of life and resiliency, I think the payback is sweet. And years ago, it used to be theory, and now the data shows.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So if people are listening and they're super interested, where do they find more information?
Yeah, the best place to go right now is huelements.com, short for human elements. We've launched our sleep journal that we're using. Dr. J mentioned that before with his area of expertise in sleep habits, the sleep journal along with the supplementation, and then we'll be using that to launch the other journals as we roll those out over the next few months.
Maybe an optimized journal.
That's the plan. Hey, there we go.
There we go.
Stay tuned. Well, we appreciate, as always, your guys' time and most of all, your commitment to helping others. We've had this conversation with several times, Dr. J and Greg as well. The spirit behind what you guys are doing is incredible, and it's more than just a business model. It's more than just being innovative. It is truly intended about making people's lives better, and optimizing, the state of the work and life balance and the state of well-being. And so just incredibly proud to be acquainted with you guys. Thank you so much for your time. This has been incredible. And we hope you all take some journaling tips from this, apply it. Stay tuned for the text-based journal coming to you soon. And we'll see you guys all next time.
Yeah, thank you guys. You guys be safe till next week, and we'll see you then. Hey guys, thanks for listening to our show. You can find Blake and I on social media channels at Blake Greyhans and at Stacie Mallon.
Be sure to follow Optimized AF on Instagram and rate and subscribe to this podcast on iTunes. See you next time.